Welcome to the After Effects course. We're going to learn one of the biggest and most useful applications that Adobe has to offer. After Effects is used for almost everything related to video. So that includes animations, videos, special effects, maybe some GIFs, and much more. I like to refer to After Effects as the Photoshop for videos. So if you know Photoshop, you know how much you can do with images and what you can create with all the different tools and effects. And with After Effects, you could do the same thing, but for motion. So in this course, we're going to learn everything related to this program. And we're going to get into the practical lessons as well. So you won't just be learning the tools and the theories, but you will also learn how to add those cool effects to your own videos following the lessons provided. So firstly, we're just going to go over the different panels and the workspace just so that you know what you're working with and it's not too confusing. That way, when we get to the actual tutorials, it will be a lot easier for you to move around your workspace and work with each of the tools. So right now, I just opened After Effects. And this is the first thing you will see. So we have some empty panels and we can see right here it says new composition from footage. Before I get into what compositions are, I'm just going to walk you through the different boxes that you see here and what they are for. We're going to start with the one in the corner, and anything I'm selecting will be highlighted with this blue color. This is where you would double click to import your media, if it's an image, if it's an audio, maybe an animation, whatever you like, and the name, type, size, frame rate, and much more will be available for you if you wanted to know these information. And as you saw, I can move, expand, or minimize these panels. I can do that with everything in After Effects, which is really helpful because depending on the project that you're doing, you may want maybe the timeline to be bigger because you're dealing with a lot of effects. Or maybe you want the preview panel to be there, like bigger. So yeah, you get to customize each of these ones and you get to close them too. So this was the project panel. Like we said, you get to import things, you get to see the information of each of the footage that you have brought into your project. And basically anything that you're going to put in your timeline to make your composition, it's going to be in the project panel. And you have some options down here for forming groups, deleting, and just some basic stuff that you get to do with those footage. So this is where you would import. You can search for your files here. And if you go in Effects Control, currently we're set to none because we have no effects. So if I have an effect on my timeline, there would be some things here and I get to change it. For example, I'm trying to make a ball move from here to here. And the effects controls would be over here, and maybe I can make it bigger or smaller and do all sorts of things. All right, down here, this box is the timeline. If you're familiar with video editing, this should be pretty familiar to you. This is where you would drag the clips from the project panel onto this timeline. And the seconds would be listed here, seconds, minutes, depending on how large your video duration is. Then you get to stack them on top, just like you would in any other program. And down here, we have the same search option. The name of your project will also appear here. So if I had a video of a bunny, and then I'll make that into a composition, it would say bunny here. So we have some options here. This is the visibility, the volume, you get to lock layers, tag them, and we have some other options that we will get into later. These are regarding the animations. So if you want to animate something, you would apply these onto each of the layers. All right, let's move here. This is the effects for text, so it's regarding paragraphs. If you work with Photoshop, these panels should be pretty familiar to you. This is when you got a big paragraph on your project, you want to maybe center it, put a space before the first sentence and all sorts of things. And then here we have the character panel, which, like I said, it's if you know how to work with Photoshop, it's pretty familiar. You get to change the font of your text, maybe add a color, add a certain style to it, and just anything else that you will need to work with the text that you have. Then next to that we have, I'm going to click on this, we have libraries. So if you're signed into your Adobe account, you get to add to your library. So if I have an After Effects library on my Adobe account, they would show up here, but I can also look through the ready-made libraries. I get to explore them, maybe grab a image, a shape, and use it for my project. I can even create new library. This helps me organize my different libraries. Maybe I want one library for flat shapes, another one for 3D shapes, and maybe another one for different images. Let's go to the next one. We have effects and presets. Now these are things that are pre-made. So let me go in like one of them. If you have a video here, you want to add a transition, you would go into transition. If you want to do something with the audio, you would add it here. So these effects and presets are things that you would click and drag onto that video that you have here, onto your timeline. And the names are pretty self-explanatory, but throughout the tutorials you'll get to know more about this. And again, we have the search bar. You get to search for a specific effect, and then you would just click and drag it onto your timeline. Alright, and then we're going to come on here, the big screen. This is the preview of your project. So whatever you do here and you want to see how it looks, you would just hit play and it would start playing on this screen. Currently the composition is set to none because we don't have one yet. And up here we have some workspaces. This is one workspace, it's called standard, but you can customize your own spaces. There's also some presets, I'll get into that in a second. We have an option for learning. If you're stuck with any tools, you would just go in here, and Adobe already has some quick tutorials for you guys to follow and learn, let's say, the brush tool. Then we have the default workspace, and we have the snap to show features. We will learn more about this part in another lesson. And these are where all of your tools are. Currently, we only have the option to work with the selection tool and the hand tool. And again, if you've worked with Photoshop or any other Adobe program, these should be familiar to you. And we'll get into these throughout the tutorials, but I'm just gonna go over these two that are visible. Basically, the move tool is just your regular cursor. You get to click things, get to drag things. And any effects that you want to add, you will need this tool. You will be using this tool quite often whenever you're working with After Effects. Then we have the hand tool, which allows us to move around our workspace. Currently, I can't use it because there's nothing, but we'll get into that later. And then we have the home button, which brings you to After Effects Home. We also have some options up here. We have File, which is all related to the file that you have. If you want to import a file, you want to import a project, maybe export your footage or anything else, you can see it's pretty standard. And we have Edit. Some of them are not there. You can copy, paste, select, deselect. Then we have Composition, which, like I said, a blank canvas that you would paint on, but here it's a blank composition, so you need to add things in to make it a full piece of work. So if I draw things and create animations, I would have a full canvas. Therefore, I would have a full composition. And this allows me to create new ones, maybe add to render queue, pre-render, and things that we'll get into throughout the tutorials. I don't want to confuse you too much by going over each of the options. Then we have options for the layer, and we'll get into layers soon. Then we have effects, which is similar to what we have over here. It's basically the same. We have animation options, a lot of them. We have some view options over here, And this is where you would work with your workspace. You will go in Workspace, currently we're set to standard, like you could see here. And then we have help if you wanted to see anything or find out more about After Effects. Alright, so this is the interface. I hope it wasn't too confusing. Right now, because it's empty, it's a lot easier to move your eyes around. But now that we know what each of these are and that we can customize our workspace, we can get into customizing the workspace. So go in Window, and when you look at it, you can see that some things are checked while the rest are not. So you can see Effects and Presets are checked. And if we look, Effects and Presets are visible on our workspace. So whatever that is checked here, you can see libraries there. Whatever is checked means that it's currently available on your workspace. So if I uncheck Paragraph, you can see Paragraph disappears. And based on what I'm doing, I would check these little panels and create my own custom workspace. So if I was animating without any text, I wouldn't need the Paragraph panel because I'm not going to be using any paragraphs in my animation. So you will just bring in the things that you need. And yeah, you would just check each one if you need them. And if you go in Workspace, we have some presets for the workspace. Currently we're in standard. We have one for text, motion tracking, essential graphics, and all of that. We will get into those later. And if, let's say, I created my own custom workspace, a workspace that I will be using quite often, then I would first bring in the panels that I need. Like right now, I do not need the library panel, so I'll just turn that off. Click on the check mark. If you're just clicking on the name, then you're not going to disable it because you're trying to turn off that check mark and not the name itself. So I went on Tools, and you can see it's gone. Click on it again, it's back. So let's say this is my workspace, and another way that you can get rid of panels is to go on these three bars next to the name. And right now I'm on the hand tool, get on the selection tool. Click that once, you have the option to close the panel, and that way you can get rid of them as well. I'm gonna go back. We have the same option for each of these panels. You can close them. And to bring more panels, we would just click on each one. Let me go on like Media Browser. And you can see that right now Media Browser was brought onto my screen. This is where I want to see my my work, and right now it's not there anymore. So when you add a new panel, sometimes it would go over the ones that you had and you wanted to keep. There's my composition, so it didn't go anywhere because I didn't delete it. Instead, I have another panel in this box. Now, if I don't want this panel in this box, but I do need it for my project, I could easily click and drag it onto other panels. So I'll just click and drag the media browser and bring it down here. This way I have the option for to keep things organized in ways that I want it. And as you can see, when you click and drag, you have options to move it anywhere that you want. So I'm going to move it to the side, and you can see that it completely changed my workspace. And I'm going to try to bring it back. And make sure you're clicking on the name and not this 3 bars. Just click it back, and there we are. And then again, I can make it smaller or bigger depending on how I like it to be. So that was how you can create your own custom workspace and organize the panels in ways that you're comfortable with. Let's say this is the workspace that I want to save for later. I would go in Window, Workspace, Save as New Workspace. Let's name it Video Editing, for example. Hit OK. And now if I go to Window Workspace, I have the option for video editing. So if I go in standard, actually let's go on something that's different. On default, you can see my workspace completely changed. And I'll go, if I want to bring back the workspace that I wanted, you can see that it shows some of the ones that we didn't have before. I'll go in Workspace and choose Video Editing. And it will bring me back to the workspace that I had and the workspace that I created for my own work. So I'm just going to kind of make this slide bigger. I don't want the character panel. I'm going to close this panel. So now I just have the effects and presets to add effects to my timeline. I have my project panel where I can bring in footage. I have the effects control, which I can work with the effects that I drag onto the timeline. Let's say I'm trying to remove some noise from my video. I'll drag this onto my video, and then here I get to change the I get to make adjustments. So I get to change the degree, the percentage, and all of that. Down here I have the media browser. This is where I can go in my straight in my files. I can go to my local drives and then look for my footages in a more direct manner. So I don't have to double click to open my file explorer and then find the footage that I need. But I do not really need this, so close panel. And there we are. That is my workspace. I'm just going to go back to my standard. And now that we know how we can kind of work around this program and what each of these are, where the tools are, and where the different settings are, we can now begin learning more about the more practical sides, like making a composition, editing videos, going over each of the tools to see how they work, and then apply them to our own works so that we can learn how to make certain videos. So without further ado, let's get straight into the lessons.